So
All right.
So we are officially recording. So if you can introduce yourself and what you do.
Hi, my name is Edmari Hernandez, and I'm an artist. I do a lot of painting, and I also do drawing and printmaking on the side. But a lot of my work is about my interaction with the ocean and my personal relationship growing up around the ocean.
Okay, and can you tell us how you got into art?
Since I was little, I've always drawn. That was just my best mode of communication. I grew up in a military family, and at home I would speak one language, but then outside I speak another language. And so being bilingual, and even sometimes in a different country where it's another third language being added, it was hard to always communicate. So as a kid, I'd just always draw because everyone would understand what drawing meant, or like what the picture was trying to say. And in a way, I also never really realized it growing up, but I was exposed to a lot of the art. Like my parents really, like, they fostered that I like to draw. They fostered that I like to color. And so they'd encourage that. They'd encourage painting. They'd encourage like me doodling and things like that. And I think that's why I got into art as it is.
And can you tell us about like which artist inspires you and who are your favorite artists?
Oh, there's so many. At the moment, I've been looking a lot towards a lot of contemporary artists, such as Zaria Lynn. You have like Courtney Madison, who does beautiful sculptures of coral reefs, and Ginny Zanger. But if I could think of older artists, I'm always a Monet fan. I love the Impressionist era, and just the way like the light works and how colors just kind of feel like they're breathing. But yeah, I mean, those are some of the influence I have. I do look into all sorts of other artworks, such as the Hokusai prints from Japan. So that's a very, very influential like subject matter when it comes to my art when I first started going into seascapes.
Okay, and so as you've mentioned, you do a lot of themed art based off of the sea and such. And can you tell us why that you do so? You've mentioned like because you grew up near the water and lived on islands and stuff.
Yes, so like I would used to do a lot of artworks about like people and people's interactions with each other. And after a while, after moving from grad school, I found myself a little landlocked because growing up part of my life in Jacksonville, we were always by the coast. We could always do stuff like that. And being from Puerto Rico, I'd go visit and we'd go to the beach and I'd go like, swimming and snorkeling. There was a point where in grad school, it wasn't more about my interaction with people anymore. It was now my interaction with nature. And I would take trips to back home to Puerto Rico or to Florida. And I would go, swimming. I'd go immerse myself in nature again. And when I started doing snorkeling, this was in 2015, I believe, in Puerto Rico. No, 16. I'm so sorry. 2016. We started snorkeling again. I started going back, and then I kind of noticed there was a change. So like I would be back at the local beaches that I knew growing up as a kid, and everything looked different. And the world is always changing, but it's like the environment was changing also very quickly. I noticed that some of the reef life and like the fish were kind of dwindled or almost gone. And so it was it was a moment where I thought, wow, like, why is this happening? And it kind of turned my direction from not just being immersed in water, but I want to talk about the environment because I've always interacted with it all my life. And why is it changing? Like it's changing so quickly, and it's not changing for the better at this moment. So how can I address that? And that's when I got into the new series that I've been working on for the past couple of years.
Yes, I did want to mention your recent art collection because I noticed that, and especially because I do know you personally, I know that you go and do a lot of like environmental related things. Like you go to beach cleanups and you are always very self-aware about what's going on, and you actually often promote that stuff on your own Instagram.
Yes, definitely. I think that's something that's also kind of grown up with me because before, you would never think about that. You always say that's somebody else's problem. Mm-hmm. And now it's like, no, this is everyone's problem. Like this is personal at this point. And I think that's also like, it helps me connect with the reasons why I'm doing these artworks. I try to like participate, volunteer, even if I just go on a walk by myself and I find some pieces of like trash or something like that, I pick it up. But it's more so like, it reminds me every single time, this is the reason why, and because you can leave the world a better place than when you first saw it.
Those are very powerful words to live by. I do want to mention one of my favorite pieces in your collection is Irma Maria.
Okay, yeah.
Due,
Yeah.
due to the, the hurricanes a couple years ago. And that was the first time I've ever noticed like how fully immersed you were into this like water theme. And if you guys haven't checked it out, we will also present her website and her Instagram so you can see all of her artworks here.
Yes, yes. That piece in particular, that was a response to not just the underwater environment, but it's how like it's kind of fighting us back. So in a way, it could be weather and it could be coastal, it could be even on land, but it's all connected. It's all connected together, and it's all connected with water too. And during that time, I actually had planned on going to visit family in Puerto Rico that year. And once that hurricane had gone through, and it wasn't just Maria, I think it was also, it was with Irma and even other tropical storms that year, they put everybody else at a halt. I couldn't do research or dive during that time. And I couldn't even go back home to visit my family because we couldn't even get in contact. So it was just, it wasn't just about, like the damage it would do environmentally, but it was also a response to how is the environment getting us back in a way, because it is all by climate change. Irma Maria was about the struggles, it was about the frustration, it was about the anger, and it was about like this endless cyclone, because we as human beings, we've done our best that we can to be conscious with our environment, but we still end up having to damage it in some sort of way. And so this is, for like I said before, like it's a response from the environment itself saying like, hey, we're fighting back. This is, you need to know what is happening. So Irma Maria was a very, very powerful personal piece. And it also like reflects upon like this moment of time where you couldn't get in contact with anybody there. You didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what was going on. So it's a very like dark moment, but at the same time, it has these spots with aquatic life, because what people don't know is with that connection with the storms, the coastal areas that have coral reefs and even sand dunes on the coast itself, those are natural means made by nature to cushion like the impact of storms like that.
Oh.
So reefs, they act as a wall for surge waves. So when waves are coming closer to the shore, they absorb most of the impact. And so most of the surge waves would diminish in power. They still, can get very violent and go through the shores. But like reefs, they, act as a natural wall. And then we as people, we've been trying to upkeep with sand dunes as well, because those are things that still kind of wall up the coastline,
Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know that coral reefs were like the natural like cushion to that.
Yes. So that's why I used that, like, was an experience of, I was on the mainland, but I used my family's experience with the hurricane, and also with the connection of how I've done the research and like how I love this, underwater seascape, because it all goes together, whether it's on land or under the sea.
Okay. And that's really cool. I didn't know any of that. Like, it's good to know all that stuff and how it impacts your art in such a beautiful way. I did also want to ask, since I do ask this a lot of people who I interview about the pandemic, and how has the pandemic been treating you, and has it affected your art in any type of way?
So at first, the pandemic, it helped me kind of retreat into trying to play around with a lot of different ideas again. Not that I wasn't doing that before, prior to the pandemic, but it was more so like, now I have some time, extra time, where I can just make a lot of small little pieces to have fun. You know, like what would happen if I cut this up? What would happen if I arranged this here and there? And so I feel like the pandemic in a way helped me release some of the things that I was trying to push too hard on, at least with the process, and then just find different ways of, you know, still keeping it active. So we were more inside all the time. Now more so, I've been more time management with, thankfully getting a new job where I'm working from home, but I also still am right next to like my studio, and I have time to work on my work. So I feel like the pandemic, it's a weird blessing in disguise. It's, you know, it's still something very tragic because it's put a lot of like people's plans, even my own personal plans, on hold. But I remember going down to the beach for the first time. I think it was, you know, mid-June. I just went to go walk. It was like in the very, very early morning. I went down to the Guana Reserve, and it felt so relieving to kind of like, oh my gosh, I miss nature. You know, like I miss being outside. I miss this moment where it's like almost like ocean therapy or even just fresh air therapy. And I think the pandemic also is just more so like realize not only can you do all these ideas, but it's like, you know, life is also short. I mean, as cliche as it is. So just do all the ideas that you had, you know, work on everything, do sketches. You don't have to make it serious. Just make art for fun again.
I love that. I did want to ask, since we did focus on your theme of like your art pieces and stuff, I did want to ask about your own personal art style as well.
Oh, how so? That's a weighted question.
So I know that certain artists use like different styles of painting, or like you've mentioned earlier that you do have like pieces that you do cut up and then post together later on. So because I'm not an artist, I don't know a lot about it, but I know everyone has their own specific style. You are the only person I've ever met that actually has painted pieces and then cut them up and then use them for other pieces.
Yes. So I like to work on lots of different surfaces. For a while, I was using only UPO surfaces, which is like it's a plastic paper. And the reason I had to use UPO a lot, especially for like the piece that you mentioned earlier, Irma Maria, it was, you can get it in really big sizes, and it was very, very light. I could make a whole lot with it, but it also didn't absorb anything. It would let the paint and the pigment and all the colors, even some of the ink that I would apply, it would all just sit on top. So it wouldn't take away from the medium itself. So I use a lot of UPO, and also while using UPO, I learned like a lot of it, since it's plastic, a lot of it was like, you know, upcycled in a way to make paper. So it was a very different way. And I kind of used that as a, you know, instead of, you know, throwing something away, you reuse it in a statement. I still use some UPO paper, but I've been incorporating it on different surfaces such as like canvas or wood. Trying to find the new different ways I do that. But when it comes to cutting things up, I think that came a little in between tearing actual like cloth papers and trying to cut pieces together. So in a lot of my older pieces from when I first started the series, I would collage images and paint on top of those collages. That would require cutting or even ripping. Then after a while, I would, it's not that you don't get attached to the work, but I'm more so open to the fact that how can I transform the work even further? So I started cutting some pieces out, and then even making like a little abstract series on the side where it was just about how can I cut this to show feeling rather than to show just an image. And I think it's just a process that I'm still kind of working on, that I kind of consider like my style. So it's just working through it, discovering more on elevating the piece in its life. Because even then, I'll sometimes even go through small little scraps that I've had from years ago that I'll just like, oh, let me cut it up and then turn it into something new. No one would notice because I could always paint on top of it. I could always add to it, transform its life. But I think that's how I see my style when it comes to process. Now, for style of art in technique, I kind of struggle between being very loose and being very tight with the work. So I like to make very nice, details, but sometimes I would revert to like, those details are nice, but what if the background is much looser? What if it's just more breathable, like water, like it's always going to keep flowing? And so there is going to be moments in a lot of my images where it's very, very defined versus the rest is very, very blurred out in a way, or hazy.
Okay. And what do you do with like pricing and stuff? Because I know you've sold a couple of your own images before.
Yes.
And like, can you give us kind of like a rundown of like how much your smallest image would be versus how much like a canvas size, like mural kind of situation?
And I think that all depends on people talk about like quality and time, but I also think about materials too. So what is also cost effective in materials? My big pieces like Irma Maria and of that series that it came from, those are very large pieces. And so obviously I would charge more. But those also have a very impactful moment of the turn in my life for the type of work that I'm doing now. I feel like I put a lot more emphasis on the price of those. And then when the work that I make now, I don't price them low, but I price them where I feel like it's fair, where it's not just accessible to, just a few, it's accessible to anybody that really truly connects with it. Because now it's more about like, it's all about my connection, but I also want people to look at the work and feel that too. Or like, oh, I've been there before, or I feel that energy as if I was underwater. And so it just depends. It depends on materials, depends on like even like sizing. I wouldn't be able to give you a full chart. I feel like it also honestly comes with like as I'm doing the work. And sometimes even I've had people tell me what they would pay for it. And in a way, it's not that they overshoot it. It's usually I'm like, oh, that's very interesting. Like that's a little bit more than I would have put. But it makes me feel like, okay, that means someone's really trying to find value in it as much as I find value in it. Okay. But I'm very open. I'm also here like, look, if you really like the piece, talk with me. Let's see what we can work with, So I try to be reasonable with that amount. Now, time-wise, time is of the essence for everybody too. So it all depends. I think I've sold one of my smallest pieces. It was a panel about 12 inches by 12 inches. So it's a nice little square. If I could give you a good price range, I've sold that for about $200, $250.
Oh, really?
So yes, but it was with a lot of time and effort and a lot of thoughtfulness put into it, where the buyer they were so happy about it that they even bought two of them so they could be together as a pair.
Aww.
And so like, that's where I feel very fulfilled in, because somebody can see that value for something small, for example. Like I said, it all just depends. I'm very open to it. It's not that I devalue the work, because I don't. I mean, I think it's very valuable, and I think it elevates in what value is when someone also can see it and they can capture that same feeling that I feel like. I feel like there's a very different gratification with that versus the monetary.
Okay. And I know that you do have kind of like different pieces and works throughout Jacksonville. Can you tell people where people can, I know how to speak English, but where people can find those pieces of art throughout Jacksonville?
Yes, I do have a couple pieces hanging up at the Lemon Street Brewery. If you haven't been there, I highly recommend. Very, very great, fun local brewery. It's out by the rail yard area, and they've been very, very generous with allowing me to exhibit some work there. And I've always even come by to just kind of switch some of them out. So if you'd like to see some of it and have like, a good beer and just, relax, I highly recommend going to a Lemon Street Brewery. At the moment, I had stuff in several galleries before, but, pandemic wise, lots of things change. I do have a recent work, which is a little bit different from what I do, but it's a figurative sets of works for Fem Art Gallery. It's in a virtual show right now, but they are looking into see if they can get some of the works into certain venues throughout the city if they're, if it's possible. But you can see that virtually at femartgallery.com or .org. And then I actually just sent some prints for a print exchange in Hawaii. So I've still been doing some work. It's very different now that the pandemic has happened. I've also been very lucky where I've had some work sponsored by Radix Magazine from their 3rd volume. And so if you haven't got the 3rd volume, I highly recommend you get it, or even just check online. I know they're coming out with the 4th volume this year, and it's going to be so great. I think they're such a great magazine in elevating and getting local artists, known. So, oh, one more. I'm sorry. I'm thinking one more. I have 2 pieces in the women's for writing in Jax show. Reefs.
Oh, really?
Yes, they're exhibited at a little local home gallery in Riverside, and they normally do lots of like open houses or like events, especially for people who are into writing. They will sponsor those events, but they have a lot of artworks that reflect on the themes, and so I have a couple works there, and it's been nice. I actually went there just a couple weeks back, so I'm there with a bunch of other very, very talented and amazing women artists there too. So yeah, that's where I'm at so far.
That's amazing. And can you tell us what is your future goals? Like, where do you see yourself taking your art to be?
I feel like I have a lot of goals in mind, but I think it's more so not moving on with the work, but moving it forward.
Okay.
I want to be able to do research again, but to find different ways to have that work reflect those experiences. I still want it to be, in creation of awareness for our environmental status. But eventually, I'd like for it to be almost seen in a way of like, wow, like I want to go and, do something good in the world because I saw this artwork. I just want to keep sharing. I think that's my end goal, is just to keep sharing what I do.
I love that. And so do share your Instagram so that way people can go to your work, and any sites that people could also look through and see where they can ask you or request certain works or purchase your work.
Definitely, yes. So my Instagram handle is Edmari _Hernandez _art. It's very simple. You'll find me. As long as you put Edmari, Edmari, you will find me. I am very active on my Instagram, but I do try to stay very on top of my website as well, which is www.edmarihernandez.com. And my website will sometimes, I'll try to keep up with it as much as I can. And I normally do. Sometimes I'll post links to like, hey, like if you are around town, the show is over here. I even list out, where I have some exhibitions at into the website, or in my Instagram, where I'm very active on. Fem Art Gallery, like I said before, femartgallery.org, they sponsor a lot of other female artists, but I am one of the artists that's on that list. And so some people have found me from there too. So if you're also curious, I would check them out. And yeah.
We will also be sharing her Instagram handle and her website on the video at some point, or in the bottom where
In the link down below.
In the link down below. I'm very not used to that. So
yeah.
If you're seeing this, please edit my nonsense out. But yeah, if you check the link down below, you'll be able to access both of these things. And you've been a wonderful joy to have with us.
Oh, thank you, Sabrina. I truly appreciate it. And I miss seeing you.
I miss seeing you too. And actually, Edmari is kind of the reason why I started working for Yes Mija.
Yes, I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
She
No,
showed it off and she was just like, I feel like you would like this group a lot. And we ended up connecting, and now I'm doing interviews for them. So we have Edmari to thank for this.
don't say that. I just, I like to share people's stuff. And also, for everyone that works with Yasmiha and even for the owner, like, seriously, thank you for the opportunity. Like, I love everything about, like, Yasmiha, and I think it's very encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
I see them, and sometimes they'll even post stuff where it's like, wow, I needed to hear that today. Like, I needed to hear that today. And so I think it's very, very nice. And it's moving. It's moving, especially for our Latina community.
It is. And I do know our founder is a good fan of your work. She
Yeah.
was so glad when you got your work published on Rad magazine. She was like, oh yeah, I do remember her. Yes, ask her to come over. Ask her
Yes.
if she's okay with an
Oh,
interview.
thank you so much.
So thank you once again
It's
for
an
being with us.
honor. It is an honor because there are so many talented people, and honestly, you guys are amazing. Thank you.
Oh, of course. And hopefully we will see you again on our site and our videos. So thank you again, and thank everyone for watching.
Thank you.